For those with good taste.
No, my picks. I wasn't wrong, so therefore I'm right.
Exactly. Let's start off here, though. We had a big double champ attempt this weekend.
Yeah, it was quite the undertaking, I guess you could say. How did you feel coming out of it?
You know, we both predicted Izzy to win, but I don't think we should be surprised by the outcome either.
No.
You know,
No.
we had called Jan the middleweight killer.
Yeah.
For a reason.
Yeah.
That's coined by us. Nobody else
Pointed it out.
Nobody's even putting this together, that the man is just assaulting middleweights.
No, dude. We uncovered gold, and apparently we're the only ones doing our homework at this point.
Yeah.
And everything that we said was right. Our pick just happened to be wrong, which I think is okay.
Yeah, and you know, like, not to get ahead of ourselves here, but I think the biggest thing that comes out of this is, like, we're all so, like, in the MMA world, it's like everybody's so quick to, like, want a dream matchup, and they want to, like, shoot for the moon really, really quickly. And don't realize that, like, Jon Jones has been in the position he's been for a very long time is because he picked pretty intelligent matchups his whole rise through this, right? And even recent years, I mean, when he hasn't looked his best, he's fighting young lions now, and it's, like, maybe not as beneficial because there hasn't been people to fight. But my point being is that, like, you know, we wanted to put Izzy in there and lock him in a cage with Jon Jones, and it's just...
Let's take a moment to just enjoy what we have.
You know, I think in retrospect, you know, like, I think Izzy's team maybe regrets this a little bit. You know, it eliminates a lot of money opportunities down the line, and you've also given away a little bit of your luster, a little bit of your steam, you know?
It's not necessarily the Conor effect when he lost to Nate Diaz, but you do lose that aura of invincibility.
Yeah.
And if you don't have that, especially in the fight game, you lose the ability to make the Floyd Mayweather run of money, right? Where you can continue to build stack on stack of pay-per-view because people want to see you lose.
I respect the idea of going, like, gambling, and that's essentially what this was, is like, this is a little bit more of a robotic striker. You know, I think we have a technical advantage. This is going to be one of our best opportunities to go up in weight and try to get a dub. So in my, like, I see the logic behind it, and I picked him to win. So I thought in the end, but I did say decision, and you did as well, right?
I did,
so, and I think the reason for that was there is a power differential, and I thought that size could be an issue. The game plan was fantastic by Jan.
If we're looking at the fight as a whole, I mean, credit where credit is due. Jan Blachowicz did everything he needed to in that fight. He put the pressure on when he needed to. You could see when his gas tank was kind of falling apart that he made the adjustments that he needed to. And the takedowns and grappling came into effect when they needed to. Huge props to Jan. And again, being the bigger guy in this matchup allowed him to kind of dictate what was going to happen with this fight. Great strategy by Israel, but there just came a point where you just felt like it wasn't going to be effective in some of those later rounds.
I don't think it's a question of Izzy's chin. I think Izzy has a decent chin, but I do notice
he's too quick to have people test it. He puts his chin out there.
Well, he does put his chin up. Like, he leaves when he throws hooks and things, like, that's what scared me when I was watching the knockouts of Whitaker and Costa. I think both of them. He throws these, like, a tight hook, but his chin is, like, floating.
And he's almost about to get caught before he lands those shots.
And I was thinking that right before the Jan fight, that I was kind of like nervous about that, I suppose. But the thing with it is, he's really willing to trade, but at the same time, it seems like when he tastes power off of a guy early in a fight, it changes the way he's willing to fight. The only guy he's really stood there toe to toe and banged with was Kelvin Gastelum, and like, let's be honest, it's a guy who is a welterweight pounds. Moving up to middleweight. So
we could say he's a fat kid. He likes it. He likes,
and he hits hard and he hits fast. Like, he's got fast hands. But that's, like, the one guy that Izzy's really gone 5 rounds in a banger with.
Yeah,
you know, we saw
been able to stand up.
We saw him in this fight with Jan Blachowicz kind of be very strategic and very tactical and spend a lot of time. I mean, they commented a million times on Blachowicz, like, eating every single feint that was thrown at him.
He bid on every single one.
But it never turned into anything. Nope. Like, it never really amounted to anything. And I don't know if that's the fact that even though Jan was biting, he wasn't throwing off of it, and Izzy was looking for him to throw, or if it's that, you know, Izzy is a guy that maybe wants things to look perfect for him to put himself out there.
Yeah, you almost felt like his strategy was to see how much he could get Jan to bite on the feints and then start to develop a game plan where he was going to use some of that. And we saw him use the leg kicks quite a bit. And when Jan starts checking those leg kicks, you do start noticing him go to the body a little bit more, but he doesn't really make the adjustment. He continues going for those leg kicks, and the majority of them are getting checked.
Yeah.
So that's where I really felt like, for Izzy, where was the level of adjustment? When were you going to strike on all of the work that you were putting in? Because like I said, you could see him setting things up. To your point, every feint that he was working on had an impact, but there just wasn't much as a result of it.
I think it also just goes to show, especially if you want to be a guy who is going to straddle 2 weight classes, you can't have a skill set. And I'll compare this to Connor in a way. And we're Connor guys. So, but when your skill set is primarily, I'm a really, really good striker, and everything else is built around being defensively sound and keeping you off of me, getting off of the ground, things like that.
Creating distance.
But if your whole game plan is always going to revolve around you getting back to your feet and implementing a striking game, I think that when you're going to try and do 2 weight classes, there's too many variables and too many different kinds of fighters, and then you're going to give up something like size that you need to have a skill set like a Daniel Cormier, for instance, that can go and kind of change, even Triple C, right? Cejudo is a guy who can fight you on all 3 platforms, right? He can fight you in the open space in the middle of the cage. He can take
control
you down
any area of the octagon.
And I think when you're going to go across weight classes, you have to have a skill set. Max Holloway is a guy who is a really heavy. He's very heavy into striking. He's a very complete mixed martial artist. But when he went up in weight, and his punches didn't learn, like the volume punching that he does didn't do the damage on a guy who is more durable because he's bigger
and could also land punches like Dustin Poirier can.
It's just a different ball game. And I think with Izzy, until he has a game that you can at least think that there's a takedown that's going to come, or you think that he could threaten with a submission off the ground, that like, what did he really show you off of his back in rounds 4 and 5? Because that would alarm me a little bit if I'm him. That guys that like, he beats Whitaker most of the time, but like I think Whitaker may have a more complete skill set at this point.
You could even say that if Calvin maybe wanted to initiate a wrestling game, that fight could have gone either way also.
I think Izzy's resolve in his gas tank or something that's going to get him through some of those issues with guys at middleweight more than it would at heavyweight, because that's or light heavy rather, because that size is always going to be an issue.
It's always going to make a difference.
Until he does what John Jones is doing, right? Like, because like John Jones might not have fought in the last year, but it'd be kind of dumb of him to just go from being in 205 to fighting a guy who's 260 pounds that maybe he can't he can't just control on the ground because this guy's physically so much stronger than him. Like Derek Lewis might not be the best grappler, but John Jones might have trouble keeping Derek Lewis down unless he gets his body into a frame that's ready for that weight class. Because DC was such a natural wrestler, he's like the easiest example of like a guy
being able to fluctuate.
Him and Cejudo both, because when you have smooth wrestling, John's a great wrestler, but John's like a clinch wrestler. Yeah. John's not a shoot from open.
John uses wrestling as a way to really dictate what he's going to do on the feet, and that's really important.
Cool. Yeah, like so. I guess the next question up here is just where do we go? Izzy's got to go back to 185, obviously.
No. You know for one,
hot take. Sorry, hot take. So he's got to go back to 185. I think you're going to see him fight the winner of Costa Whitaker.
Yeah.
Whether he's interested in that or not, with a Darren Till being a close looker on.
At this point, if you're Izzy, dictating your next fight isn't really the best bet. You need to kind of take all comers and be ready to
just go clean out the middleweight division again and then come back to 205. Because as far as what's next for Jan, he's proving a lot of people wrong. But did you necessarily come out of that like a huge believer that he's got like a long out of the people you saw on the 3 undercard, the 3 title fights that you saw, of the 3 champions that you saw, not considering Aldo,
Aljo, we won't even talk about that.
If you're considering Petra Yan as the
champion,
out of the 3 people, who is the person you would think would lose the title first?
I mean, I've always felt like, and we talked about it on our last tale of the tape, Jan Blachowicz' time is always feel like it's borrowed. He is always going to be the guy who any matchup that they put him in, they're almost expecting him to lose. Jan is going to be in a situation where if he faces a guy like Alexander Rakic.
Yeah, I mean, he didn't look very good.
He didn't look very good, but I don't think he's going to be a heavy favorite to beat a guy like that.
No, I mean, and that's not a bad thing, right? To have like light heavyweight at this point, it doesn't need a really dominant guy who's going to clear out the division.
Nope.
It kind of needs to create some challengers. So having a guy like, to your point, I don't think Rakic is like after this last weekend is an exciting matchup, but yeah, it is one that I don't think
he'd
he'd
beat
be
the
like
next guy.
Yeah, I don't. Well, so the next guy is Glover. 100%, right?
Sure.
Glover is 100% the next guy. Again, that's a close matchup though, betting wise.
Yeah.
And I love Glover. I would love to see him win the title because like one more for the good guys. Right?
Glover's the scary one, and why I hesitate to mention him is because he can be that guy with his skill set. If you look at the names on this ranking of 205, he is the guy who can clean house on some of these guys with his grappling and his striking.
He's the most complete. However, I do get worried with him that he is a little hittable, and Jan is obviously powerful as hell.
Yeah.
So that could be a problem. But if they in the grappling aspect of thing, like we've seen, I'd probably pick Glover if you had to tell me if I had to choose today. So yeah, I would lean towards, obviously you're going to see Whitaker or Costa, and then maybe Till being the next matchup for Stylebender.
Yeah, Stylebender's got quite a list of people that he needs to clean out. So I think 185 is definitely going to be busy for him, and hopefully he can weather the storm.
And he can get back to 205 at some point down the line. Bulk up.
For those with good taste.